nice. We've hit what looks like the Subaru section of your house. We've got a lot of EJ based engines down here, all the way down. That's a lot of it. You know, see, EJs have a bit of a reputation. Yet you've managed to keep this many in one piece down here.
You know, I think they're underrated or misunderstood engines. If you look after them, they'll look after you.
Right.
We see so many bad ones that come in the workshop, and people put rubbish fluids through them and horrible stuck on stuff, and they don't maintain them. But you then again, on the other hand, you see cars that have done 200,000 miles, the original engine, because they looked after it. You know, I don't think they're a bad engine at all.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, you know, the 2 litre has the stronger reputation than the 2.5 because it has it's a closed deck engine as opposed to the open deck for the 2.5.
Well, the way they did them, the original very first editions were closed deck. Then they made them all open deck completely.
Right.
And what these 2 litres in Japan are classed as semi-open.
Right.
So they have some strengthening between the waterways. With the 2.5, the issue is the walls are thinner. That's why they're weaker. So all the builds that we do, we tend to stick with a 2 litre semi-closed engine, and they work really well. It's a nice, strong engine.
And that's the thing. Sourcing 2 litre EJ20s is actually not so easy. But because you import most of this from Japan, it's harder to find a 2.5 in Japan. If anything, it's the other way around, isn't it?
Well, all the Imprezas, even up to the current ones, are all 2 litre. They've only got the 2.5 in the Forester.
In Japan, there are a couple. Actually, I think they might be non-STIs that are 2.5.
Yeah.
Like the GD. Sorry, no, not GD. GRF, the 4-door version of the 2008 through 2013 cars.
Yeah.
There was a 2.5 litre automatic version in Japan, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, very few.
They seem quite popular in Japan, the automatic, but we don't see them so often here.
Yeah.
In that generation.
I think for that model, non-STIs, they're not regarded as a sports car, so therefore the auto box is a viable option, isn't it?
I've never driven one, but
well, you know, we remember the Evo 7 GTA. I mean, I'm not sure who that was for.
Yeah. There's a lot of those in the estate version, more than the saloon, which is odd, isn't it? In the wagon.
Right.
There's a lot more wagon with the Evo 8 engine in the wagon rather than the Evo 9 engine. Again, weird things that manufacturers do. So yeah, so these engines are all Japanese, so they're all 2 litre, predominantly twin scroll, some single scrolls, and again, although you'd think it's the same as a UK car, it's different. So the engine is vastly different turbos, they have different pistons, it's a much better engine. It seems to be generally the Japanese keeping all the best bits for themselves and send all the rubbish out to Europe.
Yeah, one of the things that the Japanese manufacturers all seem to think is that, first of all, America is the dominant overseas market. That's the only one we care about. Secondly, Americans don't actually care about real power output. All they care about is the number of pistons that are in it and the size of the engine. So then they end up doing US versions, where they try and enlarge the engine with more cylinders if they can, and then after that, the rest of the world just gets what's spilt over because they go, oh, this is our left-hand drive version, is the one that we made for America. So then Europe can get that same car as well, right? So, and in the case of Subaru, I get the feeling that that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I think they've got a bum deal in Europe particularly.
With the 2.5 litre for the left-hand drive market. Whereas the right-hand drive market stood a bit of a better chance, except for the UK, which then got this really weird mishmash of the Japanese spec stuff with the Euro/US spec engine, and then the front pipe with the cat in it is a different length to the Japanese car, so therefore the catbacks that were developed for Japanese cars is a different length to the ones that are developed for UK cars, which is slightly different to the European car. Like, it's a maze, isn't it?
Yeah, and then they made only twin scroll only available in Japan.
That's correct, yes.
So you not only the lengths, you've got the fittings, the flanges different, and then the gearboxes. For example, these 6-speed transmissions, they've made the Japanese version different to the UK version. So the components are different, the ratios are different, and they didn't put DCCD in all the UK versions.
Yeah, that's
so and like we were talking about earlier, the diffs, the ratios and the compatibilities, it's a nightmare. There's so many variations, and now the newer ones haven't even got a speedo output on them.
Oh really?
Yeah. This room is a big mess, but it's one of those things. You have a crazy professor who knows where everything is, That's
Is that your dad?
that's yeah. And just to give you an idea of the volume of stuff we do, for example, that coil packs, GDB coil packs. There's probably a few hundred there.
Yeah, like coils are again another bit of a weak point in EJs, isn't it? Like we were talking about in RV.
Well, on the early ones they did, on the single pack with the leads, yes.
Mhm.
But the later ones, the coil on pack was a lot better. ECUs, they're all Japanese ECUs. Again, they are, for example, in Japan, they were never coded until later generations.
Right.
So you could plug and play in any car. Whereas English one always had a chip.
Yeah.
So that makes our life easy. If you've got tests for faults or whatever, you can just chuck one in and off you go. You can upgrade from the earlier cars. You can put later parts in. So with a lot of like cam sensors and AVCS solenoids, even airflow meters. So you can mix and match AVCS pulleys, but this room needs sorting out again. Like I said, every other year we'll take everything out, redo the shelves, restack everything, because it starts to overflow with the volume of cars that we process. But there's a lot of stuff.
It's just like I hate to think how many EJs you could put together with just the components as well as the complete engines that you've got.
There's a lot here. I think we've probably broken in excess of 1,000 Subarus. I think
Wow.
well in excess.
In how many years?
Been doing this 15 years now. Long time, Maz. Doesn't feel it, but it's been 15 years.
Wow.
But the main thing is we all still enjoy it, and we still got passion for it, and it's something, you know.
You see, as much as you say it's a pain, you have a soft spot for Subaru, don't you?
I like them, but I think it's because it's so complex and I've mastered it.
Sarge, you've taken me to the darkest container possible, and we've got some suspension dampers going on here, but we've just got so many drive shafts. We talked about this a little bit before.
I was going to show you, I thought visualise what explaining about all these different shapes and sizes of the drive shafts.
All right, take me to school, Sarge. Like the more crazy nerdy knowledge, the better for this section.
Right, where should we start? So early drive shafts. Look at these. So you've got staggered shafts one end, and then you've got stubby on the other. So that was a pair. Then they went to the later
As in,
ones.
like, that's left and that's right?
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
So these are right hand, so again they're marked up. So like the GC8 version 1 to 4 ran these staggered shafts, so the differentials were different inside. Then they made the version 5.6s, and then what they did, I picked up a front one there, but the later ones, they were all the same size. So they made them with...
You got too many shafts to know which one's which. Okay.
So the rears, they were like this, whereas the earlier ones were like that. So you had equal left and right. And the good thing about Subaru is front and rears, left and right are not handed. They're the same length, same fitting.
So all four are the same?
No, fronts are the same, rears are the same.
Okay, yeah.
So that makes life a lot easier when you can swap it out. Whereas on the Evos, if you took a left and a right, they're different lengths. Fronts and rears.
Oh,
so
really?
each corner is different.
See, I can imagine on an Evo that the front would be different from each side because it's transverse mounted,
Yes.
and the transmission's off to one side.
Yeah.
But on the rear, the diff is in the centre, right? So there's no reason for the two sides to be different.
It is, but because the diff has got the AYC part on one end, they made them different.
Okay, yeah.
So all the fittings are different. So but the lengths are different as well. So for example, Evo 4 shafts are shorter. Evo 5 and 6 are the same, but Tommy Mackinnon is different. Only by about 5 mil. And then 7, 8, 9s are different again, and 10 is a different one. So where they've made the diffs the same, they've messed up on the shafts and caused a whole lot of confusion. And then you've got things like RS shafts. So for example, a shaft without an ABS ring like this would be an RS one.
Okay, yeah.
Because it didn't have ABS. Other things you've got, so this is going to be like a detail with the shaft. So fronts, luckily, all the GC8s for the same front shaft. And what they've done is they've got a conventional, I'll put one over here, female joint with a locking pin. But later cars have got a male solid joint which pushes into the gearbox.
Does that cause issues for like gearbox oil leaks at the front when you pull front shafts out?
Well, if you're doing these, not really, because it's oil seals with the stub axle. But the later ones you've got to drain them.
Yeah.
But again, you can convert them. You can buy the stub axles, you can buy the different seals, and you can mix and match. But again, unless you know, you wouldn't be able to do this. So there are lots of variations there. And then they made the later ones with bigger CV joints. Again,
So this is like GR,
this is GDB.
GDB. Okay. Yeah.
So the first edition, version 7 or A.
Right.
And that's still got the inner male stub axle fitment and a big CV joint with a nab.
But that's for the front. So the steering
front.
is done on that joint as well.
Exactly.
Right.
And then the rears again are not handed. So left and right, and these are really popular because the rally cars running Group N are constantly snapping these.
I was just going to say, like, how strong are drive shafts for the Subarus and Evos? Like,
if you use them in a four-wheel drive setup, they're great because they are strong, and these are big shafts, big joints, and they're running R180 diffs. But if you run in rear-wheel drive, obviously all your strains at the back, you're going to start breaking shafts, and that's why we see with like the Nissan R200 shafts. They're much bigger again, and a lot stronger. In our drift car, the Subaru, that started off with this setup, and then we went to Nissan.
right.
And that's a much better way of doing it. Coming along further, this is going to really bore you, Maz. You've got later edition drive shafts.
Okay. So this is mid-range GDB.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is version 7's version 8.
Yeah.
And coming down a bit further now, I'll grab one of these shafts, and these ones are fronts, but with that male joint.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And from that point on, they've carried on with this sort of joint forward to all the gearboxes, instead of the older style with the female CV.
Right. So this is something like a Hawkeye GDB. something
Exactly,
around that
yeah.
era.
So version 9, all the white tracks.
So yeah, applied model E onwards.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So all the white tracks are running these, and again with the 5x114 hub, has a different length shaft as well.
Yeah.
And then we have some weird things like some rally cars, some pro drive cars ran this length shaft, but with that type of joint. So sometimes you open them and make a shaft up,
Right.
depending on what it's going to be
And
used
did
for.
that kind of style carry over to the GR hatchbacks
Yeah,
as well?
same style with a slightly different three-pronged.
Oh, so they're not
CV.
exactly the same.
No, oh no, can't be that easy. Well, there's an example of that sort of style.
Ah, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else have we got? So, to watch our step, there's so many.
You've run out of shelf space that you've had to start storing on the floor.
No, this is people being lazy, not tidying up.
Okay. Oh, we've got some Nissan shafts.
So
now.
Nissan shafts. I'm going to grab one of the rears, and you can see what I mean. So if you look at the thickness of that shaft
Yeah, much bigger.
compared to Subaru, these are the R200. These are real strong, heavy shafts. And
It's
these
a
are
GTR shaft.
Yeah, GTR.
Yeah, GTR shafts are actually a common upgrade for Sylvia and GTS
Exactly.
owners, right? For drifting
Exactly,
and
yeah.
things like that.
They are. I think they are the strongest rear-wheel drive shaft you can use.
Yeah,
They
which
work
is
really
which is
well.
ironic, of course, because the GTR is not rear-wheel drive.
Exactly.
But with the way that it's laid out, it's primarily a rear-wheel drive car that does send some drive to the front.
That's it, and it works really well. You know, we've got lots of S14 Sylvia stuff, S15s, GTSs, but again, these are they're not as strong as the GTR, so that's why there's so many left over. What else have we got, Matt? GRB stuff.
Right.
Again, a few shafts and lots of suspensions. Evo 10s we've got. We do seem to have a lot of those. So anyone wants Evo 10 shafts, come and see us.